My name is Helen. I'm 31 years old and I wake up every day at 5:30 in the morning with the feeling that I never slept enough. The alarm goes off at the same time it has for 6 years. Before I even open my eyes completely, my body is already in automatic motion. I turn off the alarm before it wakes the children, put my feet on the cold floor, tie my hair without looking in the mirror, pull the robe over my wrinkled nightgown. The house is still dark and silent. Ryan sleeps deeply beside me, his back turned to me, breathing heavily. He doesn't need to wake up until 7. His job at the insurance company downtown doesn't start until 9, and it only takes him 20 minutes to get ready. He showers, dresses, grabs the coffee I've made, and walks out the door. My mornings are nothing like his. The conversation about a third baby didn't end. It never ended. Ryan brought it up in different ways at different times, like he thought if he just kept asking, I'd eventually break down and say yes. In the car on the way to his parents' house for Sunday dinner, he'd mention how nice it would be to have another little one. During commercial breaks while watching television, he'd talk about friends from work whose wives were pregnant with their third. At night, in bed, when I was too tired to argue, he'd roll toward me and whispered that he missed having a baby in the house. I said no every single time, sometimes firmly, sometimes exhaustedly, sometimes without words at all, just turning away from him, pulling the blanket higher. He'd go quiet after each rejection. Not angry exactly, but cold, distant, like I was failing him somehow by not wanting to grow our family, by not sharing his vision of what our life should look like. I didn't have the energy to care about his disappointment. I was too busy surviving each day. January came. The holidays had depleted what little savings we had. The credit card bill sat on the counter, unopened, because I wasn't ready to face the number inside. The house felt smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in. Ethan had started having nightmares and would crawl into our bed at 2 in the morning, elbows and knees digging into my ribs. Lily had developed a habit of stripping off all her clothes the moment we got home from pre-K and running around naked, refusing to get dressed no matter how much I pleaded. I was drowning, absolutely drowning. And then Ryan came home with a puppy. It was a Saturday afternoon in late January. I just finished folding the third load of laundry for the day. Ethan was at the kitchen table working on a craft project that involved glitter, which meant glitter was now embedded in every surface of the kitchen. Lily was watching cartoons, sprawled on the couch in just her underwear because she had removed her clothes again. I heard Ryan's truck in the driveway, heard his footsteps on the porch. Then the door opened and he walked in carrying a cardboard box. The children noticed immediately. Ethan abandoned his craft. Lily launched herself off the couch. They both ran to Ryan, shouting questions. He set the box down on the living room floor and opened it. A puppy. Golden fur, floppy ears, maybe 8 weeks old. It stumbled out of the box on unsteady legs, looking around with confused brown eyes. The children lost their minds, screaming, jumping, reaching for the puppy all at once. The puppy startled and peed on the carpet. I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and living room, laundry basket still in my arms, staring. Ryan looked up at me with this proud smile, like he'd just done something wonderful. Surprise! I know things have been stressful. Thought this might help. Give the kids something to focus on. Teach them responsibility. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up with something between rage and disbelief. What do you think? The kids love him already. I found my voice. We can't afford a dog. He was free. Coworker's dog had puppies, just needed to find them homes. Free now, not free to feed, not free to take to the vet, Not free when he chews up furniture or has accidents or needs training. Ryan's smile faded. I thought you'd be happy. Happy? Ryan, I can barely keep up with everything as it is. Now you want me to take care of a puppy too? The kids will help. I looked at Ethan and Lily, who were now lying on the floor with the puppy, letting it lick their faces, absolutely useless for anything requiring actual responsibility. They're 7 and 4. So they'll learn. No. You'll promise they'll learn, they'll be excited for 3 days, and then it'll be my job, just like everything else. The coldness crept into Ryan's expression. That look he got when I didn't react the way he wanted, when I didn't appreciate his gestures, when I made him feel like he'd done something wrong. I was trying to do something nice for the family, without asking me. It's just a dog, Helen. Just a dog. Like it wasn't another living creature that needed constant care. Another mouth to feed, another responsibility added to the mountain I was already buried under. But Ethan and Lily were watching now, their excitement dimming as they sensed the tension between their parents. The puppy was chewing on Lily's discarded shirt, and Ryan was looking at me like I was the unreasonable one. I was too tired to fight. Too tired to explain why this was a problem. Too tired to be the villain who took away the puppy. Fine, I said. But the kids are responsible for him. Feeding, walking, everything. Absolutely, Ryan agreed quickly. Right, guys? You're going to take care of him. Yes, they both shouted. What's his name? Ethan asked. Ryan shrugged. You can name him whatever you want. They debated names while I went back to folding laundry. Jaw clenched, hands moving mechanically through the pile of clothes that never seemed to get smaller. They named him Biscuit. By the end of that first day, I'd already cleaned up 3 accidents, filled his water bowl twice, and searched online for what puppies could and couldn't eat because no one thought to ask before bringing him home. Ryan played with Biscuit for maybe an hour, threw a ball down the hallway, took a few photos on his phone, then settled on the couch with a beer to watch the game, the puppy forgotten. Ethan played with Biscuit until the novelty wore off, which took about 2 hours. Then he wanted to go back to his video games. Lily was terrified when Biscuit barked at her, crying and running to me for protection. By bedtime, I'd become the primary caretaker of a puppy I never wanted. The first week was chaos. Biscuit cried all night long. I was the one who got up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning to let him outside. Ryan slept through every single whimper, every bark, every scratch at the bedroom door. Biscuit chewed everything. Shoes, table legs, the corner of the couch, Lily's stuffed animals. I'd find destroyed items throughout the house and have to clean up the mess, redirect him to appropriate toys, try to puppy-proof spaces that weren't designed for a dog. He had accidents constantly. I scrubbed carpet stains until my knees ached, bought enzymatic cleaner that we couldn't afford. Took him outside every hour, standing in the cold January air while he sniffed everything except the spot where he was supposed to go, then came back inside and immediately peed on the floor. The kids' promises to help lasted exactly 3 days. Ethan forgot to fill Biscuit's food bowl every single morning. I'd find the puppy crying by an empty dish and had to stop making breakfast to feed him. Lily was scared of Biscuit's energy, the way he jumped and nipped. She'd scream when he came near her, which made him more excited, which made her scream louder. Ryan helped only when I specifically asked, and even then with visible reluctance. Can you take Biscuit out? I'm making dinner. Heavy sigh. I just sat down. Please, Ryan. Another sigh. Slow push-up from the couch. Come on, Biscuit. He'd stand on the porch while Biscuit wandered the yard, scrolling through his phone, not paying attention. Come back inside and immediately return to whatever he'd been doing. No checking if the water bowl was full. No cleaning up accidents he'd walked past. No noticing that the bag of dog food was almost empty and we needed to buy more. All of that fell to me. I took Biscuit to the vet for his first checkup using money I'd scraped together from cutting other expenses. The vet said he needed vaccines, a deworming treatment, and should be neutered in a few months. The bill was $187. I put it on the credit card and tried not to think about how we'd pay it off. I researched training methods online during the few minutes I had between tasks. Tried to teach Biscuit basic commands. Sit, stay, come. He was smart but easily distracted. Every training session required patience I didn't have. The house smelled like dog. No matter how much I cleaned, there was this lingering scent of puppy, wet fur and grass and something musty. My days became longer. Now I had to wake up 15 minutes earlier to let Biscuit out before the children woke up. Had to factor in feeding times, walk times, training times. Had to constantly monitor where he was, what he was chewing, whether he needed to go outside. On top of everything else, on top of the cooking and cleaning and grocery shopping and laundry and school pickups and homework help and bath times and bedtime routines. February arrived and I felt myself cracking. I snapped at Ethan for leaving his backpack in the middle of the floor where I tripped over it while carrying Biscuit's food bag. I yelled at Lily for the 100th time to please put clothes on. I slammed cabinet doors while making dinner, anger I couldn't articulate just bubbling under the surface. Ryan noticed eventually, asked what was wrong one evening after the kids were in bed. I was sitting on the kitchen floor, scrubbing yet another stain out of the carpet. Biscuit was finally asleep in his crate. The house was quiet except for the dishwasher running and the sound of the basketball game on the television in the other room.
"Nothing's wrong," I said without looking up. "You seem stressed." I laughed, actually laughed. The sound came out bitter and strange. "I'm fine." "Is it the dog? Because the kids are getting better about helping." "No, they're not." "Ethan fed him this morning. After I reminded him 3 times. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then, "I thought Biscuit would be good for the family, for the kids." "He's a lot of work." "All dogs are work at first. He'll settle down." I scrubbed harder at the stain, my knuckles white around the brush. "Maybe if we had another baby," Ryan said carefully, "you'd feel less overwhelmed, having something new to focus on." The brush stilled in my hand. "What?" "I'm just saying, sometimes adding more brings balance, gives you a different perspective." I turned to look at him. He was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, expression earnest, like he genuinely believed what he was saying. "Ryan, I'm on my hands and knees, scrubbing dog piss out of the carpet at 9 o'clock at night after spending the entire day taking care of everything and everyone in this house, and you think having another baby would make me feel less overwhelmed?" "You're twisting what I said." "How am I twisting it?" "Forget it." He turned to walk away. "I was just trying to help." "You want to help? Take the dog out in the morning, feed him without being asked, clean up after him, actually help instead of just talking about it." He stopped, turned back. "I do help." "When? When do you help?" "I work all day to provide for this family. And I work all day taking care of this house, every single day, without breaks, without appreciation, just constant, endless work that you don't see because you're not here." "That's not fair." "None of this is fair, Ryan." We stared at each other across the kitchen. The dishwasher changed cycles, a loud mechanical whir filling the silence between us. Finally, Ryan spoke. "I'm going to bed." He left. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard the bedroom door close. I went back to scrubbing the carpet. Biscuit whimpered in his sleep. The sound made my chest ache. It wasn't his fault. None of this was his fault. He was just a puppy who needed care and attention and training, who deserved better than a home where he was resented. But I couldn't give him better. I could barely give my own children what they needed. I finished cleaning, put away the supplies, checked on Biscuit in his crate. He was curled in a small ball, paws twitching as he dreamed. Then I climbed the stairs to bed, where Ryan was already asleep, snoring softly, having released himself from the conversation and all its implications. I lay awake in the dark, listening to the house settle around me, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on my chest until I couldn't breathe properly. This was my life now. Children, dog, husband, house. An endless cycle of tasks and responsibilities and needs that never stopped, never paused, never gave me room to breathe. And Ryan wanted to add a baby to it. Another person to feed and clothe and bathe and raise. Another human who would need me constantly. Another responsibility in a life already groaning under the weight of too many. I thought about Connor, Ryan's son from his first marriage, 12 years old and essentially fatherless. Ryan sent money because the court made him, sent birthday cards because I reminded him. But actual relationship, actual parenting, none. What would happen with the third child? Would Ryan suddenly transform into an involved father? Or would it be like Biscuit? All enthusiasm and promises in the beginning, then gradually fading until it was just me, alone, taking care of everyone and everything. I already knew the answer. In the crate downstairs, Biscuit started crying. That high-pitched puppy cry that meant he needed something. I pushed back the covers. Ryan didn't stir. I went downstairs and let Biscuit out into the backyard, standing on the cold porch in my bare feet and nightgown, waiting for him to finish so I could go back to bed. He took his time, sniffing every corner of the yard, completely oblivious to my exhaustion. When he finally finished, I brought him back inside, saddled him in his crate, and climbed back upstairs. Ryan hadn't moved. I got into bed, closed my eyes. Knew I'd be up again in a few hours when Biscuit cried again, or Ethan had a nightmare, or my alarm went off to start another day exactly like this one. The weight on my chest grew heavier, and I didn't know how much longer I could carry it. March came with a cold that wouldn't leave. First, Lily caught it at pre-K. Runny nose, wet cough, low fever that made her clingy and miserable. She wanted to be held constantly, wanted me specifically, not Ryan, not anyone else, just Mama. Always Mama. I carried her around the house while I worked, on my hip while I made breakfast, against my chest while I folded laundry, her fevered head on my shoulder while I cleaned the kitchen. My back screamed in protest, but she cried when I tried to put her down, so I just kept carrying her. Ryan left for work each morning as usual, came home each evening to a sick child, would ruffle her hair once, ask how she was feeling, then disappear into the living room. "Should we take her to the doctor?" he asked on day 3. "It's just a cold. The doctor will say to give her fluids and rest. That'll be $100 copay to hear what I already know." "If you think she needs to go, we can't afford it unless it's urgent." He nodded and went back to his phone. Lily's cold lasted a week. Then Ethan caught it. His came with a higher fever and a cough that sounded like a bark. I was up with him 4 nights in a row, checking his temperature, giving him medicine, sitting beside his bed until he fell back asleep. Ryan slept through all of it. Then I got sick. It hit me on a Tuesday morning. I woke up with a sore throat like swallowing glass, my head pounding, body aching everywhere. The alarm went off at 5:30 and I wanted to cry, wanted to stay in bed, wanted someone to take care of me the way I'd been taking care of everyone else. But there was no one. I got up, made breakfast, packed lunches, got the children ready for school. The whole time, my vision was slightly blurred and my hands shook with fever. Ryan came downstairs already dressed, grabbed his coffee, glanced at me. "You look terrible." "I'm sick." "The kids got you sick?" "Yes." "That sucks. Hope you feel better." Then he left. I stood in the kitchen after he'd gone, still in my nightgown, holding onto the counter for support, wondering if he'd actually just done that. Just left me sick to handle everything alone. But of course he had, because that's what he always did. I got through the day on autopilot, dropped off the kids, came home, lay on the couch for 20 minutes before forcing myself up to start the laundry. Each movement felt like pushing through water. My body was heavy, unresponsive, begging for rest I couldn't give it. Biscuit needed to go out. I shuffled to the back door in my bathrobe and slippers, stood in the cold March air while he explored the yard. My throat burned. My head throbbed. I wanted to collapse right there on the porch. The puppy had grown in the past month. His legs were longer, his energy somehow even more intense. He needed walks, playtime, training. I'd been doing my best, but it wasn't enough. He was becoming destructive, chewing furniture, digging in the yard, jumping on people. Ryan kept saying we should take him to obedience classes. "You should sign him up." "That costs money. Just look into it." But looking into it meant researching options, comparing prices, scheduling around the kids' activities, figuring out transportation. It meant adding another task to my mental load. So I didn't look into it, and Biscuit's behavior got worse, and Ryan would sigh about how the dog needed training. I brought Biscuit back inside, fed him, cleaned up the water he'd spilled from his bowl, started a load of towels. By noon, I was shaking with fever. I took medicine from the half-empty bottle in the bathroom cabinet and laid down on the couch, setting an alarm for when I needed to pick up Lily. The alarm felt like it went off seconds later. I dragged myself up, pulled on real clothes over my nightgown because I didn't have the energy to fully change, and drove to get Lily. She was in a mood, overtired from recovering from her own illness. She whined the entire drive home about wanting a snack, wanting to watch her show, wanting me to play with her. "Mama's sick, baby. Can you play by yourself for a little bit?" She couldn't, or wouldn't. She followed me through the house, pulling at my clothes, demanding attention, crying when I asked her to wait. I put on her show, made her a snack, lay on the couch while she ate goldfish crackers and watched cartoons. Biscuit wanted attention too. He brought me his toy, dropped it on my chest, whined when I didn't throw it. I threw it weakly down the hallway. He bounded after it, brought it back, wanted me to throw it again. I threw it again, and again, and again, until I couldn't anymore and just let it fall from my hand onto the floor. Time to get Ethan. I peeled myself off the couch, loaded Lily back into the car, made the drive to the elementary school in a haze. Ethan got in the car complaining about something that happened at recess. I tried to listen, but the words swam together. My head was pounding so hard I could barely see straight. At home, both children were hungry. I made them sandwiches with hands that shook. They ate, they fought over something, They needed help with homework. They wanted me to referee their disagreement about whose turn it was to choose the show. Biscuit needed to go out again, needed to be fed again, knocked over his water ball again. I cleaned it up, my knees on the wet floor, paper towels soaking up the mess, tears running down my face that I couldn't stop.
Lily saw me crying, asked what was wrong. Mama's just tired. Don't cry, Mama. But I couldn't stop. The tears kept coming, silent and hot, while I wiped up dog water on my kitchen floor. Ryan came home at 6:30, saw me on the floor, saw my face. Still not feeling better? I shook my head. Did you make dinner? Not yet. He looked disappointed. What are we going to eat? I don't know, Ryan. Whatever you want to make. I don't know how to make anything. I pulled myself up using the counter, opened the freezer, pulled out frozen pizza, turned on the oven. There, pizza. I went upstairs and laid down in bed, pulled the covers over my head, let the darkness surround me. Ryan called up the stairs 20 minutes later that dinner was ready. I didn't move. He called again. I ignored him. Eventually, I heard him feeding the children, heard their voices downstairs, the clatter of plates, the sound of the television. No one came to check on me. I lay there for hours, drifting in and out of fevered half-sleep, aware of the house continuing around me. Bath time happening without me. Ryan must have done it. Or maybe he just put them to bed without baths. Didn't matter. Couldn't matter. I had nothing left to give. Around 9 o'clock, Ryan came into the bedroom. You sleeping? No. You need anything? Sleep. Okay, feel better. He got ready for bed, climbed in beside me, fell asleep within minutes. I lay awake listening to him breathe, my body aching, my throat burning, wondering when the last time was that someone had taken care of me. Really taken care of me. Not just asked if I needed something, but actually done something without being asked. I couldn't remember. The sickness lasted almost 2 weeks. I pushed through it because I had no choice. Got up every morning even when my body begged me not to. Made meals even when I couldn't taste them. Took care of children and dog and house even when every movement hurt. Ryan asked a few times how I was feeling. Never offered to stay home from work to help. Never took over any of the responsibilities so I could rest. Just asked, received my answer, and continued with his day. By the time I finally felt better physically, something else had broken. Something internal that I couldn't quite name. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize myself. My hair was thin, breaking off in chunks. I'd been meaning to get it cut for months, but never had time. It hung limp and lifeless past my shoulders. My skin was gray, dark circles under my eyes that no amount of sleep would fix. Not that I ever got enough sleep anyway. I'd lost weight, not in a good way, in a way that made my clothes hang loose and my collarbones jut out sharp. I wasn't eating enough. Would forget meals entirely some days. Too busy feeding everyone else to feed myself. My hands were dry and cracked from constant washing. Dishes, children, dog, laundry, cleaning, always washing something. The skin on my knuckles was split and bleeding in places. I owned 3 pairs of jeans and maybe 6 t-shirts. All old, all stained, all stretched out and worn thin. I couldn't remember the last time I'd bought myself clothing. Certainly not in the last year. Maybe longer. My underwear had holes in it. My bras didn't fit properly anymore. My one pair of decent shoes, sneakers I wore for everything, had a split in the sole that let in water when it rained. I looked like someone who'd given up, who'd stopped caring, who'd let herself go. But I hadn't let myself go. I'd been consumed, eaten alive by the constant demands of everyone around me until there was nothing left for myself. Some days I couldn't remember what I used to look like, used to be like, before marriage, before children, before this life that had slowly eroded everything I was, until only the function remained. I'd wanted things once, had dreams, had interests and hobbies, and a personality beyond mother and wife. I'd loved reading, used to carry a book everywhere, would stay up late finishing chapters, losing myself in other worlds. Now I couldn't remember the last book I'd read. Couldn't remember the last time I'd had 30 uninterrupted minutes to do anything for pleasure. I'd enjoyed cooking, not the daily grind of feeding people, but actual cooking. Trying new recipes, experimenting with flavors, making something beautiful. Now I made the same 7 meals on rotation, whatever was fastest and cheapest, whatever the kids would eat without complaining. Nothing creative, nothing interesting, just fuel. I had friends, people I'd talk to about things that mattered, who knew me as Helen, not just as Ethan and Lily's mom. Now I had no one. The other mothers at school pickup were friendly, but distant. I never had time for coffee dates or playgroups. Never had the energy for maintaining friendships that required anything beyond surface level small talk. Ryan was the only adult I spoke to regularly, and most of our conversations were logistical, schedules and bills, and what needed to be fixed in the house. We didn't talk about ideas or feelings or anything substantial. We just coordinated, managed, existed alongside each other. I couldn't remember the last time we'd been on a date, the last time we'd done anything together that wasn't related to the children or household management. I couldn't remember the last time we'd made love. Months, probably. Maybe longer. He'd stopped initiating after too many times of me being too exhausted to respond. I felt guilty about that sometimes in a distant way, but not guilty enough to do anything about it. My body didn't feel like mine anymore anyway. It felt like a machine that existed to serve others, to carry children and groceries and laundry baskets, to clean and cook and perform the physical labor of keeping a household running. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be touched with affection instead of need, to be seen as a person instead of a function. Some nights I'd stand in the shower, my one place of privacy, and let the water run over me and try to remember who I was, who I'd been, who I might have become if things had been different. But the memories were fuzzy now, worn smooth like river stones. I couldn't quite grasp them anymore. The woman I'd been at 23 felt like someone else entirely, someone young and naive who thought love was enough, who thought having a family would be fulfilling, who had no idea what she was signing up for. I wanted to tell her so many things, to warn her, to shake her and make her understand. But she wouldn't have listened. Young people never do. April arrived. Ethan turned 8. I planned a small party at the house, just family, a few of his school friends. Made a cake from a box mix, bought decorations from the dollar store, wrapped presents we couldn't really afford. Ryan took the day off work, helped set up, played with the kids, took photos, was present and engaged in a way he almost never was. Everyone commented on what a good father he was, what a hands-on dad, how lucky I was. I smiled and nodded and said nothing. After the party, after everyone had gone home, after the children were in bed, I cleaned up alone. Ryan had disappeared shortly after the last guest left, claiming exhaustion from socializing. I picked up wrapping paper and paper plates, wiped frosting off surfaces, swept up chips ground into the carpet, washed dishes. The house was quiet.
except for Biscuit snoring in his crate and the hum of the refrigerator. I finished cleaning, sat down at the kitchen table, put my head in my hands. This was my life. Parties and holidays and milestones that I organized and executed while everyone else just showed up. Days that blurred together into weeks, into months, into years. A steady erosion of self until I wasn't sure what was left. Ryan came downstairs around midnight, found me still sitting at the table. "You coming to bed?" "Eventually." "What are you doing?" "Nothing, just sitting." He stood there for a moment, like he wanted to say something, then changed his mind. "Don't stay up too late." He went back upstairs. I sat in the dark kitchen for another hour, not thinking, not planning, just existing in the silence, trying to find something inside myself that felt real, that felt like me. But there was nothing there, just emptiness, just exhaustion, just the weight of everything pressing down until I couldn't breathe. I shuffled down the narrow hallway of our 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia. The carpet is worn thin in the center from years of foot traffic. The walls need repainting. They've needed it for 2 years now, but there's never time or money for such things. The coffee maker flickers twice before staying on. I've asked Ryan to fix it at least a dozen times. He always says he will, then forgets, then acts annoyed when I bring it up again. I start the coffee maker, fill the pot for oatmeal, pull out lunch boxes from the cabinet. The routine is so ingrained I could do it blindfolded. Ethan is 7, Lily is 4. They'll be awake soon, and once they are, the chaos begins. I make Ethan's lunch first. Sandwich with turkey and cheese, no mustard because he hates mustard. Apple slices in a container with a little lemon juice so they don't turn brown. Crackers, a juice box, a granola bar for snack time. I pack it all into his superhero lunchbox, the one with the broken zipper that I keep meaning to replace. Lily's lunch is simpler. She's in pre-K and only needs a snack. Goldfish crackers, string cheese, grapes cut in half because whole grapes are a choking hazard. The oatmeal is ready. I portion it into 2 bowls, add a drizzle of honey to Lily's because she won't eat it plain. Ethan likes his with cinnamon. By 6:15, I hear stirring from their rooms. Lily first. She's always been an early riser. Her small feet pad down the hallway, and she appears in the kitchen doorway, dragging her stuffed bunny by one ear. She doesn't say good morning, just climbs into her chair at the kitchen table and waits for breakfast. Her hair is a mess of tangles that will take 20 minutes to brush out. She's wearing mismatched pajamas because she insists on picking out her own clothes, and I've learned to pick my battles. Ethan follows 10 minutes later, already dressed in the clothes I laid out for him last night. He's always been more compliant than his sister, easier in some ways. But he has his own challenges. Difficulties focusing at school, trouble sitting still, complaints from his teacher about disrupting class. I place their bowls in front of them, pour milk into their cups, sit down with my own coffee, black, no sugar, because I've given up on making it taste good and just need the caffeine. Ryan appears at 6:45, showered and dressed, phone already in his hand. He pours himself coffee into his travel mug, doesn't look at the children, doesn't ask if I need help. He kisses the top of my head absently as he passes, his version of affection. Then he's gone, out the door, engine starting, backing out of the driveway, off to his day that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That has lunch breaks and coffee breaks and conversations with adults about things that aren't cartoon characters or potty training. I clear the breakfast dishes, wipe Lily's face and hands, she's gotten honey everywhere, send Ethan to brush his teeth, carry Lily upstairs to get her dressed, knowing she'll fight me on every single item of clothing. She wants to wear her tutu. It's November and 40 degrees outside. We compromise on leggings under the tutu with a sweater on top. She cries anyway because the sweater is itchy. I find a different sweater. She cries because it's not pink. I don't have the energy to argue, so she wears the pink sweater that's getting too small and will probably only last another month. Her hair takes exactly 19 minutes to brush and braid. She screams through most of it. I've learned to tune out the screaming. It's background noise now, like traffic or the hum of the refrigerator. Ethan is sitting on the couch watching cartoons when he should be putting on his shoes. I tell him 3 times before he moves. Find his backpack. Make sure his homework is inside. The worksheet on addition that I helped him complete last night at the kitchen table while Lily colored and Ryan watched football in the living room. We're out the door by 7:40, exactly on schedule. Always on schedule, because if we're not, everything falls apart. I buckle Lily into her car seat. She's singing some song from a show she watches, making up half the words. Ethan climbs into the back beside her, already pulling out his handheld game device that I allow him to play only in the car because it keeps him quiet. Drop-off at Lily's pre-K is first. It's a small church-run program 3 blocks from Ethan's elementary school. I walk her inside, sign her in, hand her lunch to the teacher. She doesn't want me to leave. She wraps herself around my leg, crying that she wants to stay with me. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, an older woman with grandchildren of her own, gently peels her off me. She's used to this. Every morning, the same routine. Lily crying, me leaving anyway, guilt settling in my chest like a stone. I drive to Ethan's school. The car line is always chaos. Minivans and SUVs jockeying for position, children spilling out onto the sidewalk, crossing guards blowing whistles. I pull up to the curb. Ethan climbs out, backpack slung over one shoulder. He doesn't say goodbye, just slams the door and runs toward his friends. By 8:20, I'm alone. The sudden silence in the car is almost disorienting. I should feel relief. A few hours to myself before afternoon pickup. Time to run errands, maybe sit down for 10 minutes with a second cup of coffee. But there's no relief. Only the mental list of everything that needs to be done. Grocery shopping. The refrigerator is nearly empty, and we're out of milk, bread, and everything else that constitutes meals for children. Laundry. At least 3 loads waiting at home, maybe 4. The bathrooms need scrubbing. The floors need vacuuming. Ethan has a dentist appointment on Thursday that I need to confirm. Lily needs new shoes because she's growing out of everything. The electric bill is overdue, and I need to call about a payment plan because Ryan's last paycheck was smaller than expected, and we're short this month. I drive home, pull into the driveway of our small house with its peeling paint and overgrown lawn. Ryan was supposed to mow last weekend. He spent it watching college football instead. Inside, the breakfast dishes are still on the table. Lily's rejected sweater is on the floor. Ethan's pajamas are in a heap outside the bathroom. The evidence of our morning scattered everywhere. I clean it all. Dishes in the dishwasher, clothes in the hamper, toys back in the toy box. Beds made, mine and the children's. Maya never makes our bed. I stopped expecting him to years ago. The washing machine is in the basement. I carry the first load down, darks, mostly the children's school clothes. The basement smells like mildew and concrete. The washer makes a grinding noise that worries me, but I can't afford to replace it, so I just hope it keeps working. While the laundry runs, I make my grocery list. Try to figure out meals for the week with the $60 I have left in our checking account. Pasta, chicken thighs, the cheap kind, rice, frozen vegetables, peanut butter, bread, milk, eggs, cereal. Nothing exciting, nothing fresh. Just fuel to keep everyone alive until next Friday's paycheck. My phone rings, Ryan's name on the screen. I answer. He doesn't say hello, just starts talking. He wants to know if I remembered to pay the water bill. I did. He wants to know what's for dinner tonight. I don't know yet. He tells me he'll be home late, has drinks with colleagues after work. My jaw tightens, but I say, okay. Then he brings it up,
the thing he brings up at least once a week now. He wants another baby. Not asks, wants. Like my input is secondary.
He says Ethan and Lily need a sibling, that our family isn't complete, that he's always wanted 3 children, that his parents had 3 and he wants the same. I remind him, as I've reminded him countless times, that I can barely manage the 2 we have, that I'm exhausted, that we can't afford another child, that our house is too small, that I never get a break as it is. He says I'm being dramatic, that plenty of people manage with 3 kids, that I just need to be more organized, better with time management. Time management, as if the problem is my scheduling and not the fact that I do everything alone. I tell him no, again, for the 100th time. He goes quiet, that particular silence that means he's angry but trying to hide it. Then he says yes to go, meeting starting, and hangs up. I stand in my kitchen, holding my phone, feeling the familiar weight of resentment settling over me. Ryan has another child, a son from his first marriage, Connor. He's 12 now, lives with his mother in North Carolina. Ryan pays child support, $250 a month, the minimum the court ordered. He never calls Connor, never visits, sends a birthday card and a Christmas present, usually something generic that I pick out and wrap and mail because Ryan forgets. When I met Ryan 7 years ago, he told me his ex-wife was crazy, that she turned his son against him, that he tried to be involved, but she made it impossible. I believed him. I was 24 and naive and thought I could be different, thought I could make him happy in a way she hadn't. I was wrong. Ryan wasn't a bad father to Ethan and Lily. He just isn't really a father at all. He's a man who lives in the same house as his children, who provides a paycheck, who shows up at their birthday parties and smiles for photos. But the actual work of parenting, that's mine. All mine. The feeding, the clothing, the bathing, the bedtime routines, the homework help, the doctor appointments, the school meetings, the emotional support, the discipline, the constant presence that children require. Mine. And now he wants me to do it all over again, with a 3rd child. I finish my grocery list, load into the car, drive to the cheapest supermarket in town, the one with the flickering fluorescent lights and produce that's always slightly past its prime. I shop carefully, check prices, use coupons I've clipped from the Sunday paper, skip anything that isn't absolutely necessary. It takes an hour and a half to fill my cart with the week's worth of groceries. At checkout, my total is $63. I'm $3 over budget. I asked the cashier to remove the ice cream I'd grabbed for the kids. She sighs, but scans the removal. New total, $58.73. I pay with my debit card and pray it doesn't get declined. It goes through. Small miracle. I load the groceries into my car, drive home, carry all the bags inside in one trip because making 2 trips feels like admitting defeat. Put everything away, start another load of laundry. It's 11:30. I have 3 hours before I need to pick up Lily, 4.5 before I get Ethan. I should eat lunch, should sit down, should rest. Instead, I clean the bathroom, scrub the toilet, the sink, the tub. The grout is stained and no amount of scrubbing will fix it, but I try anyway. Then I vacuum, living room, hallway, bedrooms. The vacuum is old and doesn't pick up much anymore, but it's better than nothing. By the time I finish, it's 1:15. I've missed lunch. My stomach is cramping with hunger, but Lily's pickup is at 2:30, and I need to shower first because I smell like cleaning products and sweat. I shower quickly, pull on clean clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, the same thing I wear every day. Look at myself briefly in the mirror. I look tired, older than 31. There are lines around my eyes that weren't there 2 years ago.
My hair needs cutting, but that costs money we don't have. I grab my keys and leave to get Lily. The afternoon routine is the reverse of the morning. Pick up Lily, who's painted a picture I'll hang on the refrigerator. Pick up Ethan, who's gotten in trouble for talking during quiet time. Drive home, make them snacks, supervise homework, break up fights, answer endless questions, prepare dinner. Ryan comes home at 7:30 instead of 6. Smells like beer. Says the work drinks ran long. He's cheerful, relaxed. His day is over. Mine continues. Dinner is spaghetti with jarred sauce. Ryan eats without commenting on it. The children pick at their plates. Lily spills her milk. I clean it up. Ethan says his stomach hurts and doesn't want to finish. I let it go. After dinner, Ryan disappears into the living room, turns on a basketball game. I clear the table, load the dishwasher, wipe down counters, give both children baths, read Lily 3 books, tuck her in, help Ethan with the math homework he forgot to mention, tuck him in. By 9 o'clock, the house is finally quiet. I collapse on the couch next to Ryan. He's half asleep, eyes glazed over, beer bottle sweating on the side table. I don't have the energy to talk, to bring up anything that matters, to ask for help, to explain again why I can't handle another baby. I just sit there, exhausted, defeated, wondering how I ended up here.
This is my life, day after day, week after week, month after month, and there's no end in sight. Something shifted in Ryan during the last week of April. He started helping, not dramatically, not with any announcement or acknowledgement of how absent he'd been, just small things that appeared gradually, like snow melting. One morning, he got up when the alarm went off, actually got up instead of rolling over and going back to sleep. He went downstairs and I heard him in the kitchen, cabinet doors opening, the coffee maker starting, the clink of bowls. When I came down 15 minutes later, expecting to find the usual chaos of my morning routine, breakfast was already on the table. Cereal poured, milk out, coffee made. Ryan was sitting with Ethan and Lily, still in his pajamas, helping Lily with her spoon when she struggled. I stood in the doorway, uncertain, waiting for the catch, the explanation, the reason. He looked up. Morning. I figured I'd get them started. You want coffee? Yes. Thank you. It felt strange, wrong somehow, like the normal order of things had been disrupted and I didn't know how to navigate it. But I took the coffee, sat down, ate breakfast with my family in a way we hadn't done in months. Ryan left for work at his usual time, kissed the top of my head on his way out. Have a good day, he said. I still didn't understand what was happening. The next morning, the same thing. Ryan up early, breakfast made, kids fed. Then he started taking Biscuit out in the mornings. Just did it without being asked. Came back inside, fed the dog, refilled his water bowl. I watched this new version of my husband with suspicion and confusion. Kept waiting for it to stop, for him to revert, for the real reason behind this sudden change to reveal itself. But days passed and he kept helping. He'd come home from work and ask what needed to be done. Actually ask, then actually do it when I told him. Take out the trash, give the kids baths, load the dishwasher. He played with Ethan and Lily in the evenings, got down on the floor with them and their toys, made them laugh, was present in a way I'd almost forgotten he could be. One Saturday, he announced he was taking the kids to the park so I could have a break. A break? Yeah, you're always saying you need one, so here, take a few hours, do whatever you want. I didn't know what to do with myself. Stood in the empty house after they'd left, surrounded by silence that felt foreign, threatening almost. I ended up cleaning. It was what I knew, what felt safe. But I did it slowly, without the usual frantic energy. Put on music, took my time. When they came back 3 hours later, all three of them were happy. Tired, but happy. The kids talked over each other about the playground, about Biscuit chasing squirrels, about the ice cream Ryan had bought them. Ryan looked pleased with himself, proud. That night, after the children were asleep, he sat next to me on the couch, closer than usual, his arm along the back cushion behind my shoulders. We were watching some show neither of us cared about. His hand moved to my shoulder, gentle, testing. I'd become so unused to his touch that I almost flinched. "You seem less stressed lately," he said quietly. "I guess things have been easier." "Good, that's good." His hand moved slightly, thumb brushing my collarbone. "I miss you," he said. "I miss us." There it was, the reason, the thing I'd been waiting for. He wanted intimacy, wanted me in the way a husband wants his wife. And this, the helping, the attention, the presence, was the path to getting it. Part of me felt cynical about it, bitter, like I was being manipulated, like his help wasn't genuine, but transactional. But another part of me was just tired of fighting, tired of being angry, tired of the distance between us that had grown so wide I couldn't see across it anymore. And maybe, somewhere deep down, I missed it too. Missed being touched. Missed feeling like a woman instead of just a machine that served everyone else's needs. His hand moved to my face, turned me toward him. He kissed me softly, carefully, like I was something that might break. I kissed him back. We went upstairs, to our bedroom that had become just a place where we slept in separate orbits. He was gentle, attentive, took his time in a way he hadn't in years. And for those moments, I let myself believe it. Let myself believe he'd changed, that things would be different now, that we turned some corner and found our way back to each other. Afterwards, lying in the dark with his arm around me, I felt something close to hope. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too." Maybe it was true. Maybe we did love each other underneath all the resentment and exhaustion and disappointment. Maybe love could be enough if we both tried. I fell asleep more peacefully than I had in months. The change lasted exactly 4 more days. Ryan kept up the helping routine through the weekend. Sunday, he made pancakes. Monday, he got up with the kids again. Tuesday, he took Biscuit for a walk after work. Wednesday morning, I woke up and he was asleep. Didn't stir when the alarm went off. Didn't move when I got out of bed. I stood there looking at him for a long moment, waiting to see if he'd wake up, if the past 2 weeks had been real or just an elaborate performance. He kept sleeping. I went downstairs alone, made breakfast alone, got the kids ready alone. When Ryan finally came down at 7:30, already dressed for work, he poured coffee and headed for the door.
Wait,
I said. What about breakfast? The kids? What about them? They're eating. You've been helping all week. He shrugged. I'm running late today. Gotta go. And he left. That evening, he came home, went straight to the couch, turned on the television, didn't ask about dinner, didn't offer to help with anything. I stood in the kitchen making spaghetti, watching him through the doorway, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Thursday was the same. Friday, worse. By the weekend, he was completely back to his old patterns, sleeping late, disappearing to do things with friends, leaving me with everything. The helping had stopped as abruptly as it started. Sunday night, after the kids were in bed, I confronted him. What happened? What do you mean? You were helping. For 2 weeks, you actually helped. Now you've stopped. He looked genuinely confused. I helped this weekend. I took out the trash. Once. You took out the trash once because it was overflowing and I asked you 3 times. I don't know what you want from me, Helen. I want what you were doing before. The helping, the being present. I am present. You're not. You were for a little while and now you're back to how you always are. He set down his phone, irritation flashing across his face. Is this because we haven't made love since last week? Is that what this is about? The question hit me like cold water. No, this is about you pretending to change long enough to get what you wanted and then stopping. That's not fair, isn't it? You helped for 2 weeks, we were intimate, now you've stopped helping. That's not a coincidence, Ryan. I didn't. I wasn't doing it just for that. But his face said otherwise, the guilt there, the caught expression. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You were. You absolutely were. I'm trying, Helen. I'm doing my best. Your best lasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks of actually being a partner and a father, and then you got what you wanted and went right back to leaving everything to me. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, you performed being helpful long enough to get me into bed and then decided you didn't need to try anymore. He stood up, defensive now, angry. I work all day. I'm exhausted when I get home. I can't be everything you want me to be all the time. I'm not asking you to be everything. I'm asking you to be something, anything, more than just someone who lives here and expects me to handle everything else. I provide for this family. And I do everything else, every single other thing that makes this family function. And the one time you actually helped consistently, it was manipulation. It wasn't manipulation. Then why did it stop right after we made love? He didn't have an answer for that. Just stood there, jaw clenched, hands in his pockets. The silence stretched between us, heavy, damning. Finally, he spoke. I'm going to bed. He left the room, left me standing alone in the living room, with Biscuit at my feet and the weight of my own foolishness crushing my chest. I'd believed him. I'd actually believed he'd changed. But people don't change. Not really. Not unless they want to. And Ryan didn't want to. He wanted things to be easier for him, wanted me to be less stressed so I'd be more available for his needs, but he didn't actually want to do the work required to make that happen. The helping had been a performance, a means to an end, and I'd fallen for it completely. I felt stupid, used, hollow. I cleaned up the living room mechanically, put away the toys, straightened the pillows, let Biscuit out one last time. The puppy had grown significantly, was nearly full-size now, all gangly legs and boundless energy. He still needed training we couldn't afford, still had accidents sometimes, still required constant attention, just like everything else in my life. I stood in the backyard in the dark, watching Biscuit sniff along the fence line, and felt tears burning behind my eyes. 2 weeks of hope had been worse than no hope at all. Because now I knew exactly what I was missing. Knew what it felt like to have help, to have a partner, to feel like I wasn't drowning alone. And now it was gone again. Ryan was already asleep when I came upstairs, sprawled across his side of the bed, breathing deeply, unburdened. I got ready for bed slowly, washed my face, brushed my teeth, looked at myself in the mirror and saw what I always saw. Someone exhausted. Someone defeated. Someone who stopped existing as anything more than a function. I climbed into bed, lay in the dark, listened to Ryan snore, and I understood, finally and completely, that nothing was going to change. This was my life. This was my marriage. This was what I'd chosen, even if I hadn't fully understood what I was choosing at the time. Ryan would help when it benefited him, would be present when it served his purposes, would perform being a good husband and father just long enough to get what he wanted, and then retreat back into his comfortable patterns of avoidance and minimal effort. And I would continue doing everything, carrying everything, being everything to everyone except myself. The tears I'd been holding back finally came, silent, hot, soaking into my pillow. I cried for the hope I'd allowed myself to feel, for the version of my marriage that had existed briefly and then vanished like smoke, for the woman I used to be who thought love meant partnership and not just coexistence. I cried until I had nothing left, until I was empty and exhausted and numb. Then I closed my eyes and waited for sleep. That wouldn't come. Because tomorrow, the alarm would go off at 5:30 a.m., and I'd get up, and I'd do everything all over again. Just like always. Just like forever.
June came quietly, bringing longer days that only meant more hours to fill with the same endless tasks. The argument with Ryan had created a silence between us that felt permanent. We spoke only about logistics, what time he'd be home, whether we needed milk from the store, where the children's permission slips were. Our marriage had become a series of transactions with no warmth underneath. I'd stopped expecting anything different. Biscuit recovered from his infection slowly. The second round of antibiotics finally worked, though it cost another $70 we didn't have. He was back to his energetic self by mid-June, requiring walks and attention and training we still hadn't managed to afford. Just another responsibility in the endless list. But it wasn't Biscuit that changed everything. It was a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon in late June. I was folding laundry in the living room, Lily playing with blocks nearby, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Probably a spam call about my car's extended warranty or some political campaign. But something made me pick up. A woman's voice, uncertain and tired. "Is this Helen? Helen Morrison?" "Yes." "This is Amanda. Amanda Morrison. Ryan's ex-wife." My hands stilled in the laundry basket. I'd never spoken to Amanda, never met her. She existed only as a shadowy figure in Ryan's past, the crazy ex-wife who'd made his life impossible, who'd turned his son against him. "I'm sorry to call you out of nowhere. I got your number from Ryan's mother. I hope that's okay." "It's fine. Is everything all right?" A long pause. Then, "It's about Connor. He's been asking about his dad. Really asking, not just the casual questions he used to have. He's 12 now, and he's starting to understand that his father doesn't want to be in his life. The words hit me harder than I expected. Connor. The son Ryan never mentioned, never called, never visited. I don't know what you want me to do. I don't want anything from you. I thought you should know because Ryan is going to get a letter from my lawyer next week about adjusting custody arrangements. Connor wants to see his father, wants to try having a relationship, and I'm going to make that happen legally if Ryan won't do it voluntarily. My mind was spinning. Custody arrangements, but Ryan hasn't seen Connor in years. Exactly. And whose fault is that? The question hung between us. We both knew the answer. Ryan told me you made it impossible for him to be involved. Of course he did. That's what he tells everyone. The truth is, I begged him to be involved. For the first 2 years after we separated, I drove Connor to Ryan's parents' house every other weekend so he could see his son. Ryan showed up maybe half the time. Eventually, I stopped making the drive. Why traumatize a toddler with the father who couldn't be bothered to show up? I sat down slowly on the couch, laundry forgotten. He pays child support. That was court-ordered, the absolute minimum. He sends a birthday card and a Christmas present, which I'm guessing you pick out and mail because they're always age-appropriate and thoughtful in a way Ryan isn't. And that's it. That's the sum total of his involvement with his firstborn child. Everything she was saying aligned with what I'd observed, but never fully acknowledged. The way Ryan never mentioned Connor, never seemed bothered by his absence, never made any effort despite claiming he wanted to be involved. Why are you telling me this? Because you have children with him. 2, right? A boy and a girl? Yes. And I'm guessing he's not much more involved with them than he was with Connor. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The truth was too obvious. I was where you are once, young and believing his promises, thinking he'd change, thinking love would be enough. I had Connor when I was 24. Ryan was 26. He said all the right things about being a family. But when reality hit, the sleepless nights, the crying, the work of actually raising a child, he checked out. Completely. I was doing everything alone while he went out with friends, played video games, acted like he didn't have responsibilities. She could have been describing my life, word for word. It took me 3 years to leave. 3 years of making excuses for him, telling myself he was just adjusting, that he'd get better, that every marriage was hard. And then one day, I looked at Connor. He was 3 years old and realized he barely knew his father. Ryan was a stranger who lived in our house. So I left. How did you do it? Leave, I mean. It wasn't easy. I moved in with my parents for a while, got a job, started over. But I'll tell you what, being a single mother was easier than being married to Ryan. At least alone, I only had to take care of Connor. I wasn't taking care of a grown man who acted like a child. We talked for another 20 minutes. She told me about Connor, about what a good kid he was despite everything. Smart, kind, responsible. She'd raised him well, alone. She told me she'd remarried 2 years ago. Her new husband had adopted Connor, was the father Ryan never been. Connor called him dad now, but he still wanted to know his biological father. Wanted to understand why he'd been abandoned.
I don't expect anything from you, Amanda said before hanging up. I just wanted you to know what's coming. And maybe to understand who you're married to,
really understand, before you waste as many years as I did. After we hung up, I sat on the couch in silence. Lily had lost interest in her blocks and was watching cartoons. The laundry basket sat beside me, half folded. Everything Amanda had described was my life. The absent father, the broken promises, the man-child who took no responsibility, the woman doing everything alone while claiming to be in a partnership. Ryan hadn't changed between marriages. He was exactly who he'd always been. I'd just been naive enough to think I'd be different, that he'd be different with me. But people don't change. Not fundamentally. Not without wanting to. And Ryan didn't want to change. He wanted someone to take care of everything while he lived his life unburdened. He'd found that in me, just like he'd found it in Amanda before me. The realization should have devastated me. Instead, it clarified everything. I thought about Connor, 12 years old, and spending his childhood wondering why his father didn't love him enough to be present. I thought about Ethan and Lily, growing up with the same absent father, learning the same painful lessons about their own worth. I thought about myself, 31 years old and already feeling ancient, exhausted, used up, invisible. This was my life unless I changed it. The thought was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. That evening, after Ryan came home and disappeared into his usual spot on the couch, after I'd fed the children and bathed them and put them to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I searched for jobs in Richmond, entry-level positions that didn't require a degree. Retail, food service, administrative assistant roles. The pay was terrible, minimum wage or barely above it. But it was something, a starting point. I looked at apartments, small one-bedroom places that might allow children if I could prove income. The rent was more than I could afford on a minimum wage job, but maybe with child support, maybe with help from my parents initially. I researched divorce lawyers, read about custody arrangements and asset division and how Virginia handled separations. I made lists. Expenses I'd have as a single mother, income I'd need, steps I'd have to take, resources available for single mothers, assistance programs, childcare subsidies, legal aid. The numbers were daunting, nearly impossible, but not completely impossible. For the first time in years, I was thinking about a future that didn't include Ryan, a life where I was alone, but truly alone. Not this half existence of being married to someone who might as well not be there. I heard him coming before I could close the laptop, quickly minimized the browser windows, pulled up something innocuous. He walked into the kitchen for a beer from the refrigerator, glanced at me. "What are you doing?" "Just looking at some things online." He didn't ask what things, didn't care enough to be curious, just grabbed his beer and left. I sat there for a long moment after he'd gone, heart pounding, feeling like I'd crossed some invisible line just by researching options, by considering possibilities. The next morning, after dropping the children at school, I did something I'd been thinking about since the conversation with Amanda. I went to a bank across town, not the one where Ryan and I had our joint account, a different one entirely. The woman who helped me was young and professional, explaining the process of opening an individual savings account. No joint holder, just me. I deposited $40. It was all I had in cash, money from a small freelance job I'd completed the week before. Money Ryan didn't know about, because I'd been paid in cash and hadn't mentioned it. $40. Barely enough to matter. but it was mine. Completely mine. The bank gave me a temporary debit card and said the permanent one would arrive in 7 to 10 days. I left with paperwork I'd have to hide and a secret that felt dangerous and necessary. This was the first step, $40 toward independence, toward a future I could barely imagine but desperately needed to believe in. Over the following weeks, I added to that account in tiny increments. $5 here, $10 there, any money I could earn or save or hide. It grew slowly, $50, $75, $90. Not nearly enough to leave, not even close, but enough to prove to myself that leaving was possible, that I wasn't completely trapped, that somewhere, somehow, there was a path forward, even if I couldn't see the whole thing yet. I started applying for jobs, filled out applications during the precious few hours between drop-off and pickup. Most didn't respond. A few rejected me immediately, but I kept applying. I called legal aid and got information about low-cost divorce options. Made an appointment for a consultation in August, 2 months away. They had a waiting list. I didn't tell Ryan any of this. Didn't tell anyone except my mother, who I called one afternoon in tears, finally admitting how bad things had gotten. She listened without judgment, offered to help however she could, promised that if I decided to leave, I could stay with her and my father until I got on my feet. I thought I could make it work, I told her. I thought I was strong enough. You are strong enough, honey. That's not the problem. The problem is you shouldn't have to be this strong alone. July came. Ryan received a letter from Amanda's lawyer about custody arrangements for Connor. He was furious in a cold, distant way, angry that she was dragging him into legal proceedings, angry that his son wanted to see him. She's poisoned him against me, Ryan said. But I talked to Amanda. I knew the truth. Connor wasn't poisoned. He was hurt. There was a difference. The lawyer's letter required Ryan to respond within 30 days, to participate in mediation, to work out a visitation schedule. He threw the letter on the counter and ignored it for 3 weeks. I watched the deadline approaching, watched him do nothing, and understood with painful clarity that this was who he was. A man who avoided responsibility until forced into it, who blamed everyone else for his own failures, who would rather lose relationships than put in effort. This was the father my children had. This was the husband I'd chosen. But I didn't have to keep choosing him. The secret bank account grew slowly. $120, $150. I got a call back for a retail job at a department store. They wanted me to start in September, part-time, minimum wage. I said yes without consulting Ryan. I needed my own income, needed something that was mine. When I told Ryan I'd gotten a job, he looked annoyed. Who's going to watch the kids? Your mother said she'd help, and they're in school most of the time now. I don't want my mother raising our kids. She's not raising them. She's helping for a few hours a week. What about dinner, the house? I'll still do all of that. Because of course I would. Taking a part-time job didn't exempt me from any of my other responsibilities. It just added more to my load. But it was necessary, essential even. August came, with oppressive heat. The air conditioner struggled. The electric bill was astronomical. Ryan complained about money constantly, but did nothing to change our situation. I went to my consultation with the legal aid lawyer, learned about my options, about how divorce worked in Virginia, about custody and child support and asset division. The lawyer was honest. It would be hard, messy, expensive, even with legal aid, and I'd need to prove I could support myself and the children before any court would grant custody. but it was possible. Difficult, but possible. I left that appointment with paperwork and information and a clearer picture of what I'd need to do. The path was long and steep, but at least I could see it now. That evening, I stood at my kitchen sink washing dishes while Ryan watched television in the other room. Ethan and Lily were playing quietly upstairs. Biscuit was asleep in his crate. The house was relatively peaceful, an ordinary evening in an ordinary life. Except, everything had changed. I had changed. I wasn't waiting anymore, wasn't hoping Ryan would transform into someone he'd never been, wasn't believing that love or patience or suffering would somehow fix what was fundamentally broken. I was planning, preparing, taking small steps towards a future that terrified me but had to be better than this. The secret bank account had $193 in it. Not enough to leave, but enough to prove I was serious. Enough to show myself I could do hard things. I would start the retail job in September, would save every penny I could, would continue documenting everything. Ryan's absence, his failure to parent, the financial strain, all of it. And when I had enough saved, when the circumstances aligned, when I was as prepared as I possibly could be, I would leave. Not today, maybe not for a year, but someday. I would take my children and walk away from this marriage that had never been a partnership, from this man who had abandoned one son and was in the process of failing another. I would be alone, truly alone, poor, struggling, overwhelmed. But I wouldn't be invisible anymore, wouldn't be drowning, wouldn't be slowly disappearing into nothing. I would be Helen again, not just someone's wife or someone's mother, but myself. The woman I used to be was still in there somewhere, buried under years of exhaustion and disappointment. I could feel her stirring, remembering, preparing to fight her way back to the surface. It would take time. It would take strength I wasn't sure I had, but I had to try. Because this life, this half-life of existing without living, of serving without being seen, wasn't sustainable. It was killing me slowly, eroding everything I was until nothing remained. And my children were watching, learning what marriage looked like, what love looked like, what women should accept and endure. I couldn't let them learn these lessons. Couldn't let them think this was normal or acceptable or what they should expect from their own futures. I had to show them something different. Even if it was hard, even if it meant starting over from nothing. I finished the dishes, dried my hands, turned off the kitchen light. Upstairs, I checked on Ethan and Lily, both asleep in their beds, peaceful and unaware of the storm that was slowly building. I stood in their doorway watching them breathe, these children I loved more than anything, and made them a silent promise. I would get us out. I would build us a better life. I would show them what it looked like to be strong, to choose yourself, to refuse to settle for less than you deserved. Not today, but someday. That promise, that secret plan, was the only thing keeping me standing. I went to bed beside my husband, who wasn't really my husband anymore, who had never been the partner I needed, who had used me up and given nothing back and would continue to do so unless I stopped allowing it. He was already asleep, snoring softly, unburdened by any of the weight I carried. I closed my eyes and thought about the bank account, about the retail job starting in a few weeks, about the lawyer's information hidden in my drawer, about all the small steps I was taking towards freedom. $193. It wasn't much, but it was more than nothing. It was a beginning. And sometimes that's all you need, just a beginning, a first step, a tiny light in the overwhelming darkness, showing you which direction to move. I had that light now, dim and distant, but there.
I fell asleep holding on to it like a lifeline, knowing the road ahead would be long and brutal, and possibly impossible, but also knowing I had no choice but to try. Because staying meant dying, maybe not physically, but dying nonetheless. And I wasn't ready to die yet. There was still fight left in me, still hope, still some small, stubborn part of my soul that refused to give up. I would feed that part, nurture it, let it grow. And one day, maybe soon, maybe far in the future, it would be strong enough to carry me out of here, to carry all of us out, into something better, something harder but more honest, something that hurt but also healed, into a life where I existed as more than a shadow, into freedom.